Okay, so according to this article by a law firm, based on the info and data collected by this lawsuit, I don't think I said that right. Apparently, the mining industry were affected by discriminatory laws during apartheid in South Africa, and blacks were systematically exploited during those times because the whites managed and owned those farms. It seemed to me that when I asked Dr. Google, maybe I haven't found everything. Maybe I did not use the right keywords, who knows? From what I found from Google, and I did not ask Dr. Bing and Dr. Safari, it seemed that it was the whites who first discovered the different kinds of mines, whether it's gold, uranium, or other precious metals, when they first set foot in South Africa. So they started the mining industry. But maybe, who knows, capitalists, they want to maximize profits and maybe minimize costs. And maybe because of that, they exploited the blacks when they hired them to work on those farms. And these Mines and Work Acts came about 3 decades before apartheid. I think apartheid came about in 1948 and ended in 1994. And through this Mines and Work Act, they limit blacks miners to low-skill, hazardous jobs with low pay. So it's a manifestation of institutionalized racism through this Mines and Works Act. This is also a manifestation of cross-institutional disadvantage because the government started this act and is backed by the employers, the economic and political institutions are involved in here. So it's also a manifestation of cross-institutional disadvantage for blacks and a manifestation of cross-institutional advantage for whites. They are the owners and they are part of the management. They are more privileged during those times. And they had other measures to control black workers on those mines. Blacks could only live in single-sex hostels near the mines, which can be hazardous, while the whites, in another article by Dr. Google, they live further away from the mines. So it could be a health hazard for the blacks. So a third institution is involved, the healthcare institution. And healthcare worked differently for blacks and whites during apartheid. So it's a manifestation of cross-institutional disadvantage. 3 institutions are involved, or maybe 4, who knows. Given the nature of blacks' job, low skill, dangerous, low pay, maybe we can assume that they are low educated. Maybe their quality of schooling based on where they used to live weren't that good. A 4th institution was involved in this case. And we can assume that this goes on for decades, maybe from the earlier parts of the 20th century until 1994. So the disadvantages of blacks workers could accumulate over time. It seemed to me that they had no way to leave their residential areas. They live in those hostels near the mines, which can be hazardous. So the disadvantage can accumulate over time, can accumulate from infanthood to childhood years, to teenage years, to adulthood years, to old age. And it can also be a manifestation of intergenerational disadvantage for blacks and intergenerational advantage for whites. Maybe grandparents' generation live there, parents' generation live there, kids live there, their subsequent generations live there, all the way until 1994, who knows? And for sure, it's also a manifestation of residential segregation and hyper-segregation. Blacks live in single-sex hostel. It's hard for them to get home to their families, who knows, aside from holidays or weekends. And it's hard for them to form a family. It's also a manifestation of hyper-segregation. Based on what we read in this paragraph, is a form of intense segregation. And because they live so close to the mines, they are exposed to all kinds of hazardous materials from the mining industry. It's also a manifestation of environmental racism. So many concepts from the chapter you have to read this week are portrayed in this incident during apartheid. And yeah, job reservation, skill and management jobs were reserved for whites. It's a manifestation of institutional racism. And blacks were confined to unskilled, hazardous, and low-paid jobs. And if this goes on from 1911 to 1994, it's also a manifestation of intergenerational advantages and intergenerational disadvantages. And if somebody lives near the mining sites for their whole life, it's a manifestation of cumulative disadvantage for blacks. And if the whites, they live in safer, further areas for decades, it's also a manifestation of cumulative advantage for whites. And if it goes on across generation, it's a manifestation of intergenerational advantage for whites and intergenerational disadvantage for blacks. And blacks who work in those mines were required to carry a passbook that restrict their movement, that kept track of their movement. And they could not leave the mine, their workplace, without the passbook. It's a form of institutional racism that targeted the blacks during apartheid. And there were separate amenities for blacks and whites due to the separate areas they live. It's a manifestation of cross-institutional, cumulative, and intergenerational advantages and disadvantages for blacks and whites. And the apartheid government enforced a migrant labor system. They recruited blacks from rural areas or neighboring African countries. And they are separated from their families for long periods of time. So this kind of racism was embedded in the system and structure of the society during apartheid. Is a manifestation of institutional racism. And obviously, they don't prioritize the health and well-being of Black minors. Is a manifestation of environmental racism in combination with institutional discrimination or institutional racism. Is also indirectly connected to hyper-segregation. The Blacks live so close to the mines. So, according to another article by Dr. Google, the Blacks developed all kinds of health issues when they left the mines after they retired. And the Blacks could not form unions to protect their rights and their safety and their job conditions. Is another manifestation of institutional racism. The government, the apartheid government, dictated that Blacks could not form unions to protect themselves. And is a form of economic exploitation on the Blacks, condoned or endorsed, to be worse, by the government. So a manifestation of cross-institutional disadvantage for Blacks is also a manifestation of institutional racism for Blacks. And because of how mining was being done, or is still being done, it's not good for the environment. And Blacks live so close to mining areas. The hostels were built very close to mining areas. This is a manifestation of environmental racism through environmental degradation near the mining areas. And it perpetuated inequality between Blacks and whites for many, many decades and many, many generations. This is a manifestation of intergenerational advantages or intergenerational disadvantages. Okay,